Hi, Isabel.
Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome, amazing. I'm so glad we get to dive into this awesome conversation and explore your pillar and let everyone know more about you and what you have to offer. But before we do that and we introduce the Heart Center, let's have a moment of stillness. Okay, I'm just going to close my eyes and take a few deep breaths. Alrighty. Yay, well, here we go. I want to thank everyone who will be watching this interview in advance and welcome everyone to the Heart Center. This is Isabel and I'm Chris. Isabel is one of the teachers and guides of the Heart Center, so she really embodies in a huge way multidimensional communication. So she's on the team as a communication specialist and someone who can help us connect with you know, all areas of life, be it relationships, animals, channelings, downloads. But she has shared some amazing stories about how she came across this gift. So we're just going to dive in, Isabel, and you want to tell the world a little bit more about your pillar, your work with the Heart Center, more about what you do personally, and just throw it all at them.
Well, I think before I jump into the pillar, maybe I can share a little bit of how my perception of human beings, because it helps a lot to understand the communication piece. So my story is an interesting story because I am one of those people that was all in my head all the time. So I was always a thinker, and I think it happens a lot to individuals who have been victim of like physical abuse or sexual abuse, where like you totally like lose the capacity to connect with your body. So you go in your head, right?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And so that's kind of how my journey started. Is I went into my head for so many years, and you lost the communication through your body and all. And I think I went in the counseling field, so I'm a certified counselor. No surprise there,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people who have emotional challenges go in that field. So that's kind of where I went. And then I felt an emptiness in me, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that. It was like, I don't know, I think my body was trying to say, hey, I'm here, like pay attention to me. So I started to have all those weird physical symptoms like sickness and belly aches, and even my mom say like growing up I was always talking about my belly aches.
Wow, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that went through this, because through my years of counseling, I heard that story many times.
Yeah.
And I realized that, okay, like I need to be physically active. So I was always physically active, but it was more in the sport. But I decided to go into something that brought consciousness or body awareness, like yoga posture, right? Like Pilates. I went into dance also, which required a lot of body awareness. So that's kind of where I started connecting with my body. And all of a sudden starting to realize that, oh, there's a whole body of mine that I've been ignoring for years and years and years.
Isabel,
So the reason...
I want to bring up a really cool point that you talked about. So the belly, when people say that their stomach hurts, and I know, like from my research and just my experiences, like that's our gut. So it's just ironic how the body is way more intuitive than we want to give it credit for, and these emotional or even spiritual symptoms show up physically, and a lot of times it's in the gut, which is where a lot of people talk about getting that gut feeling. So it's cool that you were able to connect the dots there.
You bring such a great point. Back in those days, I was a very skeptical person, and for me, spirit did not exist. Like it was not a part of mine.
Wow.
It was part of totally disconnected from religion too, which people often connect spirituality with religion, but at the same time, it's the message of love, right? Which is totally connected with the heart center.
Yeah.
So I was totally ignoring that whole piece. So for me, like, I was not even conscious of my spirit, which for me, the human experience, why we're on earth, is to have the capacity to connect the mind, the body, and the spirit, to become like full capable of connecting with that community.
Fully developed human beings on the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people find themselves, like you said, in one place or the other. Like there's a lot of athletes. I was a former athlete, and I was very much in my body. It was all about the physical expression. And I was raised Christian, and so you had that little bit of that. So I guess that was like the seed into what I would now say the heart-centered living. But you have these parts of people who get just drawn into just the physical part, and then maybe it's just the mental part. So everything they do is mental and analytical and like rigid. And like you said, it's about bringing everything together. So but it's not done through the mind. The mind's a part of it. It's done through the heart and being open and raw and authentic. So and centered.
Exactly. Really. and for me, like, I got so in tune with my body that I decided to seek personal trainer. So I seek my certification as a fitness trainer, and I started teaching fitness. And the fitness class I was teaching had a massive part that was very spirit connected, which is interesting. It's not usual, but I was kind of ignoring and pushing that to the side until one day life was like, enough, Isabel, you have to recognize your spirit. So I told you how
please share that story. I love this story. So everyone, this is probably one of my favorite stories I've heard in a long time, because it's really like superhero kind of, like out of the blue, nowhere, like, oh, I can do that. It's so cool. But
it was so cool. Preface. But at that time, I thought, like, I didn't understand what was going on.
So what happened? Tell us. Tell me again.
Yeah. So I was struggling at that time with kind of like depression, but it was more anxiety. And my doctor said, well, I think you would benefit from mindfulness classes. So, like, to kind of slow down your brain. Like, I've always been like very hyperactive, and my brain is always going. So. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I see something, when you have no clue what mindfulness is. I just registered to something, and I did that totally alone, no friends. I knew no one that was going to this. So I just show up Thursday night. It was actually hosted.
You just
out of the blue.
Picked a class.
Yeah. Right. And I knew no one, nothing about the organization that was hosting this, and it was like a 10-week program, I believe. So I show up, and we're all seating in a circle, which for me is very different. Like, oh, we're in a circle? This is not a classroom setting? Yeah.
Like, it took you out of your brain, out of your mind, like, right away.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I'm extremely introvert. I'm a trained extrovert. I like to say that. Because I'm very, like, private and very in my head. Well, less now than I was before.
What's your sign, Isabel? Sorry, what's your sign? I just want to use.
I'm a Leo.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah.
Side note.
Yeah.
Side note, Leo.
And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, the instructor or facilitator, she's like, "So what brings you here?" And everyone is sharing why they're there, but what they're sharing doesn't make sense to me. Like, this person is talking about their grandmother who passed away. This other person is saying that she talks to spirits, and I'm like, where am I? In my head, I'm starting to freak out. Because I don't forget, I'm a skeptic at that time. I don't believe in spirit. Like, it's just like, what is this? So I decide to stick through it. And I decided, okay, there's a reason. Something deep in me told me, no, you stay here. Like, it must have been my eyes, or someone was like, you have to sit here. I felt like glued to my chair.
Yeah.
So I stick around to find out that it's a Sixth Sense class. So I'm registered, enrolled in a Sixth Sense program that will last 10 weeks.
You're like, oh my, what did I get into? Wow.
Yeah. It freaked out, and I go back home, and I don't want to tell anyone that I was there. Like, for me, it was almost like my AA class. Like, I didn't want anyone to know I was developing my intuition.
Right, and that's a scary thing. Like living that life that you were so much up here, and that's you. So you shaped your world unknowingly. You were creating that
Huh.
reality, and so without being aware of it, you created this environment that made you feel safe to be up here. And so once
Exactly.
you stepped out of the mind and you tuned into the heart, you're like, uh oh, this is can't tell people, but really this is it's like opened you up to these amazing things. So go on, continue.
Well, and you have to understand that was back in 2007. That was
Mm,
10 years ago, and
wow.
a lot has changed in terms of people being open. Like
Right.
even then, yoga was weird.
Yeah.
Like it was back in those days where like that whole spirit connection and chakras and all these pieces were not familiar
Right.
to most people.
Mm-hmm.
So I stick to it, and I totally became a believer that there was something out there. I think it was one of our last class, and what we had to do for activity is we had to. It was called a treasure hunt. So the instructor would hide. I can't remember if it was. I think it was her keys. She hid her keys in a mansion, like it was a big house, like a big building.
So cool.
And everyone was sitting. It was kind of like a little sitting area. Everyone was sitting there, and one by one, we would go and find the keys. And she would hide them in a different place every time someone found it.
Wow.
We're talking about a home that have like.
Was it just like a normal house key, like a little?
Yeah. Like it would have been like a tiny one key, like
Yeah.
very small piece.
Right. So
And this space have like 10 rooms,
Wow.
and like it's massive.
That's so cool. So you had to not only not face, but allow your intuition to develop. You had no choice really. But
No.
I'm sure
No.
there was.
No.
So something cool that happened for you probably was that piece of you that felt that fear of being judged if you didn't, right? So isn't that something that happens like whenever we tune into our path, right? We feel that judgment of, oh man, like my family or my friends, and like, I'm going to be judged for this, or they'll think of me as weird or something. So you felt that though in the same looking for the keys, like if you failed, what was that like?
Yeah, I did, but at the same time, I was with like maybe 10 or 12 other people that were extremely intuitive and psychic.
Yeah.
And the first person go and come back, and she's like, oh, I found it in 30 seconds. So for me, inside, I'm like, oh, I don't have it in me. I can't do this. Like that's what was going in my mind, was like that whole ego piece coming out and being like, no, you can't do this. Like, you're not psychic like these guys.
Right. I love
But
this.
what I learned is it's in everyone. We all have it. We just have to connect with our heart center.
Right.
And at that time, I did not really know what it meant. So I just went with the flow, in the sense that I told my ego, okay, just shut up.
Right. Just for a little bit of time, take a break. Yeah. Right.
You can do this. And my instructor was so good. She was very intuitive. Like, she was capable of sensing how I felt. And she was like, Isabel, you can do this. And she even like noticed our body language.
Yeah.
So she said that if I trusted my intuition, I would have found the key faster. And so what happened is I was like the third person to go. So I go, and she said that the first I looked for a second, like I did this, and then came back. And that's where the key was.
That's where it was right away. Yes.
Right away, I stepped in this room, and it was like 3 rooms down. I stepped in there. I looked at exactly where it was, and then she said, you went somewhere. You start looking somewhere else. But I still found the key in less than a minute.
Right. Yeah.
And we're talking this big space.
A big space.
So I just couldn't believe it. And you know what? Like, in hindsight, like when she told me I looked where the key was, I was like, yeah, I did. I remember doing that and telling myself it wasn't there. And it's like that amazing. Constant battle of the ego that is like, no, you're not right. You can't do this.
Yeah. That is such a beautiful introduction to your work, not only with the Heart Center, but with what you do outside of this space. I would say your life has taken on, the role of multidimensional communication, which is just being open and trusting your heart, because it's always going to guide you to where you need to go. And we can throw in some science for people who are more linear. There's a process that actually takes place whenever we tune into our intuition. Our brain, helps us really send out the electromagnetic pulses that get us flowing in that direction. And it's like, oh, I knew it right away. Um,
Right.
there's a book called Blink, and it's by Malcolm Gladwell, I think. It's about
Yes.
how the brain works in split second decisions, right? And he actually talks about in that book how he would go out, he would park in a parking garage. When he would come out and go back to his car, he would look left, right? But then he would say, no, I didn't park over there. I didn't park over there. He would go over
Yeah.
to the right, only to not find his car. But like intuitively, he knew that the car
Yes.
was over towards the left. So it's
Ah.
like if we just allow ourselves to trust, um, and the thing that does come up is the ego. It's the mental programming that we've been brainwashed with to not trust ourselves, to trust a religion, to trust a parent, to trust a partner, to trust everything but who and what we truly are. So,
Right.
what a way for you to be introduced to this. This
I
is
know.
so
And
cool.
my life just took a complete turn from
Yeah,
that day.
yeah. So, what happened next? I mean, what brings you to again, the heart center and this pillar? How do you see it reflecting from that experience to where we are now?
Yeah, so that was back in 2009. I think 2007, 2009 is when I started shifting.
Yeah.
From 2009 till I would say this summer, I've been going through a lot of release and a lot of like dealing with, I call them the vicious cycles.
Mm.
It's like the repeating stories.
Yes. Yeah. Good one.
But through those years, I've acquired tools. So
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I did my sixth sense, I went and I kind of took pause in between everything. I started my Reiki practice, and Reiki is something that I've definitely connected at my heart with. And I'm not saying that Reiki is the one way to go. I'm saying
Right.
that that's what
That was for you. That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, and for me, it was really, I'm now a Reiki master teacher, and I just love that energy, that vibration. And it had taught me that energy, we're surrounded by energy. We're all, like, everything is energy, right? And energy is information that vibrates. That's all it is.
Beautiful. You summed up all of existence in that one sentence.
Yeah.
So cool.
So,
Yeah.
So, everything have a vibration, everything have information for us. And when we start connecting our mind, our body, our spirit, and start being conscious of that energy, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing information that is useful for you. And it could be, for me, it started as simple as starting to pay attention to, they say the angels have signs. So angels is, and you can call them whatever you want, guides, but it's that way of the universe to communicate with us and put us on a certain path. If we start paying attention to those signs, you become on your path for your heart center, basically. Right. And for me, it was paying attention to little things like feathers. So feathers was, every time I saw feathers, I knew I was supported. I knew I was loved. So it kind of started slowly, and then I went through this course, which was an animal communication course, and started to realize that I could actually communicate with animals. And I say that, and it sounds crazy because back then I was like, yeah, like the horse whisperer was that big movie and
like
whatever,
the dog
right?
whisperer and all that fun stuff. That's
awesome
so fun.
Book. and you have like Caesar with the dogs and all that. But you can actually do it, which I think was fantastic. And it was all about connecting with that vibration, connecting with that energy that's around you, and being capable. And like, I'll learn so much from just, if you can talk with your body, if you can learn to communicate with your heart center, you can basically communicate with anyone, anything.
That's awesome.
All the energy that surrounds you.
Because I hear you saying something really important, right? So you said you connect with the heart center and the body. You connect with the energy. So it's not so much about the form. So it doesn't matter if the horse looked like a horse or if it looked like a frog or if it looked like a computer.
Yeah.
The vibration is what you allow yourself to tune into. And
Yeah.
that's what makes you, you know, such a beautiful gift in this way, is that you understand that it's not about the form. I think our minds want to get caught up in, oh, it's a horse. I can't talk to the horse. Well, it's a field of energy, a field of
It's
information, and I'm going to connect with that vibration of that person, place, or thing to channel whatever
exact,
message they have for me. That's
exact.
beautiful. What does that look like for someone who would say, I want to connect with my aunt who's passed on? Um,
Yeah.
is do you feel that vibration is still the same even though they're not here physically, right? That vibration would still exist. How would you describe that for people who might be curious about that?
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up, and I have chills while you say that. And if you don't know, people don't know, chills is usually, for me, it means it's the truth. So it's
Yeah.
something that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
So
There you go. Beautiful.
I have a friend who we call her Super Nanny, and we connect with her. I connect with her all the time, and she's my friend's grandmother. I've never met her, which is kind of funny, but how it looks like, I think it. I don't want people to get stuck on one way it happens.
Yes.
I'll
Thank you for
share
saying
how
that.
it happens
That's so
for
key.
me,
Yeah. That's
because
so
it's
key.
different from everyone. But what is the common thread is you need to learn a way that you can kind of quiet the mind, but you don't want to stop the thought process you go through. Because for me, it's almost like I'm talking to someone in my head, and there's information that comes in. So if I was doing what a lot of people say, like block your thoughts or remove all thoughts, I would not be able to communicate.
Right.
So I think it's just to allow to calm yourself down and find this place where you can relax. I've learned many different ways were recommended to me, and I stopped fighting it because I was trying everything and it was just not working. Like, I cannot sit down in silence and meditate. It's never
for
going to
you.
happen for me.
Yeah.
I'm a hyperactive. My brain is always going, so it's not going to go there. But I can go in Shavasana, which is the last posture you usually do in yoga when you're lying down, and just relax there. Start focusing on my breathing, and I'll ask for information. So don't be afraid to ask.
Beautiful.
And just say, okay, I'm open. Provide me with any information. So for this person who wants to communicate with their grandmother, it's like any normal communication, in the sense that you talk, and then you have to let the other person talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Listen.
And
listen for those signs.
Yeah. So whenever that energy, that information takes place, right? That exchange of energy information. I know for me, one of the first things that came up whenever I learned to communicate multidimensionally was who is that? Who's talking? So your mind again comes up and says, no, it can't be the tree. No, it can't be the horse. No, it can't be Nanny who's passed on. But really, when you ask the question, you open yourself up. And so how do you tell people to maybe take the ego out of the way, not to get rid of the ego, but just to push it off to the side a little bit, so it's a clear channel? How do they trust what they're hearing? How do they trust what they're hearing?
Good one. And trust is big. It's major. So like any gifts, no, I shouldn't say that. So you have the difference between a gift and a skill, right? A gift is someone who's born with the skill. They don't need to practice it. It's natural.
Right.
So you have a lot of people that are natural psychic or natural tarot readers. So they were born with that gift. But it's all in us. It's just, for some of us, it's a skill. Right. And you need to practice and develop it. I did not wake up one day and was able to talk to an animal. I actually did a whole certification, and I'm not saying that everyone needs a certification,
right? But
it helped me develop that skill. I've been trying to meditate probably since 2009, when my doctor told me you have to meditate and calm your mind. I've only figured out that Shavasana is my technique a
That's your
couple months ago.
meditation. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
perfect. I think what you said about there not being one way. There's many
Oh,
ways to the top of the mountain. There's many paths to the top of the mountain, and I think
ex-
what you're allowing everyone to see now is that these are skills and some gifts that you've developed and allowed to come through you. And like you said earlier, you have um, practice, and that now you have a toolbox, right? So you
yeah,
have savasana. That's as close to meditation for Isabel that you're gonna get. For
yeah.
someone else, it might be sitting under a tree and finding that stillness, and boom,
Running.
like yeah,
Some people,
exactly. In
and
my yoga training, we did a meditative walk every other day or so. So meditation, multidimensional communication, all these things you're letting us know come in many different shapes and forms, and that is so important for people to hear because I know that the mind wants to pinpoint and wants to say that's the one way, that's how you do it, and if you're not
exactly.
doing it, then you're wrong, and then you go down that rabbit hole. So it's a personal journey that really does come from your heart and your spirit, and it's
It's a
and
personal journey, but it's something that we can all do.
that we can all
It's
do.
not just available to the elite population of
Yes,
connected people, right?
yes, exactly. Like they would have us think.
Yeah, that's why the Heart Center is such a great place for individuals to start or to pursue their
Mm,
journey, because we have the capacity to work together and find those. Like, I know for me, like my Reiki master, when I was going through my training, was like my coach to be able to understand what's going on. Because
mm.
during that journey, you need confirmation.
You
Like,
do.
you need
Yeah.
confirmation that, okay, like
That
that
it's
I was
working.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, how many times I connected with my Reiki master and said, hey, I think a crow spoke to me. Does that make
Does
sense? And
that
she's
sound
like,
like
oh,
her?
I get shivers on that. Yeah, you totally spoke with a crow.
Right.
But I would say that to my engineers colleagues in my project management world of work, and they would think I'm crazy.
Right. Yeah. And the
Right.
funny thing is about them, so they too have that ability to connect on that level. And it's
Anyone.
and it's really a matter of uncovering the truth of who we are. Um,
Yeah.
and so because the difference is when you spoke to your Reiki teacher, your guide, they were already attuned to this
Right.
vibration, right? So it doesn't sound crazy. And when you speak to anyone else who doesn't understand that vibration, it is going to sound crazy. And crazy, now that I understand a little bit deeper, is not it's not saying things that sound different to other people, but it's simply not understanding what they're saying. You
Exactly.
know?
It's ignorance in its most positive way of
Yeah,
saying the word.
yeah, it's true. So how do
Yeah.
as the pillar of multidimensional communication, what is your um, what would you like to offer to people? I mean, I know we don't want to give away your first class or anything, but just to say like an overall arching theme,
Right. So
what would that be? What would that
I
look
think
like?
for me, everything I believe, and we might disagree or agree on this, but I think everything start by starting to communicate with your whole person. Like, I'm talking about your body, your mind, and your spirit,
Mm,
and understanding your emotions,
yeah.
understanding the connection between your physical body and your spirit, which could be through the chakra, for
Mhm.
example.
Mhm.
Your emotion is the connection between your mind and your body, and then you have the whole connection between the mind and the spirit, which is like that whole subconscious
Right.
state where you meditate, where you get that information. So it's about the five senses for physical body. It's about the sixth sense for your spirit, and it's also about those thoughts in your mind and
Right.
connecting everything. So by working with me, I was able to do that connection, that
Mm.
full human experience connection. And then you become aware of the physical environment and all the information that comes to you.
Yeah.
And with that connection to your heart, you can completely understand what the spirit level is happening.
Right.
And for us to observe what's happening in the world today, I wish everyone could see it. the way that we see it. And I'm not saying that in a snooty way. Like, I'm not trying to say we're seeing it in a better way than other people.
It's a different
It's
way.
just such a different experience.
Right.
And it feels so much more empowering, and also enlightening, and starting to realize that every time, I wish that everyone every time went through challenges in their life had those tools to be able to understand where it comes from.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. You covered, everything beautifully. I want to draw attention to allowing people to see it in a different way, because I think that is a scary thing. And what you're offering to people, and what the Heart Center is offering to people is a way, it's the new. So allowing people to view life and view humanity in a completely different vibration that is not one that we've been living for the past 2,000 years, or however long, 100, 200 years, however long it's been. So it's not that, I understand when you say it's not snooty, but it is different and it is new. And it's almost like, I love using this analogy, and you probably hear me say it a couple hundred more times, but if you're eating, spaghetti or pasta, let's say spaghetti, right, the stringy noodles with a spoon, right, and you've been doing that for 10 years, and you get this spaghetti, it's good and it's yummy, and then someone comes along and says, hey, here's a fork, and you're like, nope, I'm not going to do that, that's weird, that's a fork, that's a weird, I don't trust it, that's different, that's new, I don't trust it. So that's basically what that is. It's a new way to do things. You're still going to get the spaghetti, it's still going to taste good, but it's going to be a little bit easier.
You got it. It's going to be easier. And I think that's the idea. Any challenges, we all go through challenges.
Right.
But by having that connection with
that toolkit,
spirit, it makes it easier.
Yeah. So I think it's a good chance for people to find different tools. I know connecting with you, Isabel, has been like out of this world, like quite literally. We've had our own telepathic connections out of the blue, like, oh, I was just about to text you. And I think that's, and for me, those things do make my life easier, because there's already, even on a subconscious level, you kind of already know what the conversation that we're going to have is going to be about. So there's like less needing to speak and talk, and just kind of a knowing and like an energetic resonance with the information that we're sharing.
And this is so true, because we haven't talked about relationships with other human beings, but by being open to with your heart center, you start having so much better relationships. Like, I can't remember the last time I had drama in my life. Like, it's like that all falls off. Even though, like, some people will have drama that I know are going through something, I don't go through that state anymore. And it's like that capacity, you're right, like we're on this same frequency in some ways. Like the information, I know what you need, you know what I need. We don't need to explain. You know where I'm coming from. I know where you're coming from, and we can just go with the flow.
Just go with the flow, Then, and the cool thing is, then we can actually, when it was so clear, we can actually use our mind now correctly. We can use it in a way that is actually more beneficial to ourselves, but also the whole human species. Because now the mind isn't controlling us and, bringing in the drama and the fears and the worries and the anxieties, but it's now sitting back, patiently waiting to be, of service to the being that wants to connect with it. So now we can say, okay, mind, let's put all of our effort into promoting, or all of our effort into making videos, whatever it is. And it's such a process of just like allowing it to happen, because the energy's there, the information's there, but you're not a victim to the ego and the mind. It's being used specifically.
And that's such an important point you're making, because so many people believe that the mind, the thoughts, is the ego. No, it's not.
Right.
And I want to bring the same analogy to your body. So many people have disease, illnesses, and that whole fighting cancer. I know people will have difficulty with me saying that, but
I already know what you're gonna say. Say it.
not about fighting your disease. It's about
Yes.
listening to what is it telling you? What is your body telling
Yeah.
you? There might be something that needs to change around you. So anything that physically becomes illnesses, have been trained to fight it.
To fight, and that
When,
only creates more tension and more of the same thing that you're fighting, because you're bringing that energy of like tight and tension to it. Yeah.
right, and you're stimulating your flight or fight system, which brings adrenaline and all those like things to your body that is like, okay, like let's fight it. But you don't want to give adrenaline
No.
to your cancer, right?
No,
So
right.
you need to learn to love yourself and your body and be like, thank you so much, body, for expressing this to me. Now I can heal it. Now I understand where it comes from. I've had tummy issues, like you were saying, for so long, right? And yeah, it was all about trusting my intuition.
Wow.
Do I have problems now? Sometimes. I still don't always trust my intuition, and that's just part of life.
Right, yeah.
But now I know when it comes, it's like, oh, I know exactly what that means.
You're more in tune with it now. Now you're no longer a victim to your circumstances. You are one with the circumstances. So
Exactly.
by being one with the tummy, you and the tummy can flow in the same direction instead of there being like this fist fight all the time. Now it's like, okay, I'll listen to you, you listen to me, and now we're gonna ride off into the sunset together.
Exactly.
It's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so awesome, Isabel. I just want to check the time. We have about 5 more minutes or so.
Yeah.
I wanted to just give our pine cones a little love. So we got our pine cones here, and Isabel started to speak about her intuition and her connection with spirit. And these beautiful pieces of information are a great metaphor for that intuition, for connecting with the pineal gland and releasing chemicals that help us tune in. So it's not only a spiritual thing, like Isabel said, it's actually a physical thing too, where when we actually connect with our intuition on a conscious level, it does change the way that the brain works. It changes the way that the pineal gland is activated. And whenever you consciously have something that represents a higher frequency, whether it's sacred geometry, whether it's crystals, you are automatically affected by that energy. So these pine cones are kept around to keep everyone in the heart center in alignment. So that's why you will see us have our cones. Wow. I want to keep going, but I do want to respect our time. Yeah. Do you want to? Is there anything you want to offer to the audience before we finish with our heart opener? Is there anything else you want to say? More about you personally?
You were talking and something came in mind. So, I used to have a hard time to shut down my brain in the sense of the ego brain, the ego thoughts.
Yeah.
So one of the things that came in mind while you were talking about the pineal gland, and for me, I saw the third eye, which maybe not everyone's familiar with the third eye, but it's the location here, which is one of the chakra that we have, but it's the most connected with your intuition and your heart center. So they say that if you're capable of connecting your third eye to your heart, you're opening that communication line for intuition. So the way that I develop that is what I want to share with everyone.
Yes,
so how we
do.
can open it. So you want to imagine a lotus flower. So I don't know if everyone, or you can use a pine cone. That's actually a good analogy. So you want to imagine the pine cone. Yeah. Yours is a little bit more closed than mine. You see how mine is open?
Oh, yes.
So I want everyone to imagine Chris pine cone in their forehead, in their third eye position. There you go. Yeah.
Like this?
So whenever you're thinking too much, you want to imagine your pine cone is closing. So that kind of relaxes a little bit. Now, when you close it completely, you're going to close your intuition. When you open it completely, which mine is a little bit more open, you're going to open fully your intuition.
Beautiful.
Now, we don't recommend to have always your intuition fully open like this. And the reason why is because sometimes you just get so much information.
Yeah.
Like when you start being attuned with the energy around you,
It's a lot.
sometimes you don't want the drama person next to you. You don't want that energy to
Right.
come in. So what you might imagine is kind of like an in-between. It's like and slightly open but not fully closed. So that was a technique that I use a lot during my relaxation or breathing exercise, kind of playing with closing completely and then starting to open a little bit.
Very cool. That
Yeah.
is thank you for sharing that. That is a
Yeah.
great piece of information. I would call that the spidey sense. So what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So that's
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
I'm a huge superhero fan, more specifically Spider-Man, and he has the ability to know when something's going to happen. So he can like his spidey sense tingles, and he's okay. He can dodge a truck or whatever it is. But if he had that open all the time, like fully expanded, he would be overwhelmed. I think of Superman in the first Superman movie a few years ago, Man of Steel. There's a scene whenever he's in the closet, and it's like he can't take it. It's too much. So he can tune into everything, and it's too much. And so it's really in a sense, a mastery of not being in control, but understanding what we're allowing into our field of awareness and what we're not, and choosing what to tune ourselves into and what not to. So always having it at this point, like you said, of okay, this feels good, we're going to go here. Now we're going to shut down a little bit. So that's a beautiful analogy. I wanted to give people another advice to tune into their intuition, since we're speaking of communication. And something that I've used is a lot of our intuition is developed whenever we're children, right? We're actually already attuned whenever we're children, and over time it gets shut down.
Yeah, because the whole human experience is the three components. So we're born with the body, the mind, and spirit being connected.
Being connected right away, exactly. And so one thing that I like to do is if I ask for guidance, if I ask for information, the first thought that comes into my mind, yes, my mind, I go with. Probably 90% of the time. Because I'm not, there's no fear of it being right or wrong, good or bad. It's just I ask the question, and what you're doing is you're tuning into your heart. You're saying, heart, show me, just show me, right? Show me the answer. There's going to be an instant thought. Go with that thought. Trust it. Because as soon as you don't go with it, there's going to be 1,000 other thoughts that are going to tell you da 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 da. So, so it really comes down to trust yourself. Learn to feel your body, feel the vibration of your own existence.
That is so true.
Tune into your own energy so you can decipher, whenever you're tapping into someone else's energy field. These are all practices that the Heart Center really plans on sharing with people. We're not going to do it tonight. We could, but we're not going to do it tonight. But these are things that I'm sure Isabel, myself, and a few of the other guides and teachers will share with you. But having said that, this has been an awesome interview, an awesome conversation from the Heart Center. We'll end with a heart opener. I want to remind people, if you haven't registered yet for our early registration, you have until November 18th. The first 9 to register get a free gift from the Heart Center. And if you register before November 18th, you also get a discount before our just regular registration after the 18th. Classes start January 8th, 2018, and we will have all 9 pillars, 9 guides. It's a 10-week course. So much to say about it. If you haven't heard, just go to our website, www.theheartcenter.space. What else is, Bo? We're on Facebook, Instagram at 9 The Heart Center. And ask questions. Put the word out there. Tune in. We'll always post content. We'll have more interviews to come. www.theheartcenter.space. And that is all for now. So, Isabel, let's just take a moment to
Yeah.
relax and settle in. And we'll end with a short heart opener. So awesome and beautiful, magnificent. Isabel, thank you so much for being part of the Heart Center and sharing your love and your energy with all of us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm really excited about the program. So I'm
Yeah.
excited, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. So everyone sign up and we will see y'all soon, okay? Thank you.
See you.
Bye, Isabel.